Welcome to the All Metal Mode podcast with your host, Michael Hare. Tune in every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern with co-host Gypsy Jules, and every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern with Matt Hoffman as we talk to guests, discuss metal detectors, equipment, and everything treasure related. Feel free to join in the discussion in the chat room during the show, and please, if you like what you hear, we'd appreciate you taking a moment, hit that like button, and share the link with your friends. We hope you enjoy the show. The All Metal Mode podcast starts right now.
Hello, everybody. This is Mike here. Welcome to the All Metal Mode podcast with my co-host, Gypsy Jules. Boy, I stumbled there for a second. You know what? If I didn't make at least one mistake every night, it probably wouldn't be a good show. At least one good hiccup, and it happens. So, Gypsy, how are you tonight?
I'm great.
I got to tell all of our listeners, I was about ready to tell Gypsy that we couldn't do this together anymore because before we even decided to start doing the show together, she had told me we talked about some different possible guests, and she mentioned Terry Carter, and she told me what he was about, and I'm like, oh my God, we got to get him on. And she has taken forever to get. I was getting upset with you. I'm kidding. I'm kidding, but I'm so glad we finally got him. We're getting him on, and what an interesting guy. And before we even get started, I'll tell you, if you want to know who we're talking to, go out to YouTube and just look up Terry Carter, Terrycarter. Absolutely interesting videos, very cool, and I'm so excited to have him on, Gypsy, and thank you so much for your hard work and dedication. I knew it took a few times to convince him, and he's nervous. He has nothing to be nervous about, and I'm sure it's just going to go super great.
Yeah, Terry is an awesome guy. I was lucky to meet Terry. It was, I think, last year when Wayne Nugget Brain, he's in the chat. He just joined the chat. Let's see, Wayne Nugget Brain, the president of Watts, invited me to go to the rendezvous hunt in Colorado last year, and so I went and had a fabulous time, and I got to meet Terry, and I was just amazed at some of his treasure stories, and subscribed to his channel and started watching some of his videos, and then we got to Detector. He had brought his Tesoro.
A Tesoro guy, huh? We're going to get along great. You know how much I love Tesoros.
I do. And we started detecting out there and dug some treasure together. And, of course, most of that stuff out there, this was a seated hunt. But we had fun. And then he started telling me about some of the misplaced archaeology that he researches. And, like, he'll hear a story and then go start researching it. And specializes in seeking out these, lost, forgotten treasures and these stories that just, make any treasure hunter drool.
Right.
And like things, misplaced archaeology that you hear about stories of carvings in the mountainside that have something, maybe even in Egyptian writing or hieroglyphics or some weird language, and he'll start doing the research, and he'll go to a lot of these places and take photos and video and interview these people. And so without further ado, let's say hello to Terry. Hey, Terry.
Hey, how you doing, man? After that introduction, I either got a fat head or I'm really, really scared, nervous, and I can't perform like you're bragging me up to.
Oh.
No, Terry's an awesome guy. And then I also had a chance just, when was it, a few weeks ago, when I got to go back to Colorado, when we were at the Watts booth at the convention center there in Denver, Colorado. Terry and myself, and let's see, who else do we have? We had, of course, Wayne Nugget Brain. He was the master behind all that, orchestrating all that at the International Sportsman Expo. And we were at the Watts booth, and Terry and I got to talk more treasure stories, and he was fabulous at getting people to start just telling about, people that were walking by and saying, hey, I bet you've got a treasure story to tell us. And he would start interviewing people right there. And boy, some people had some pretty interesting stories. And
there was some interesting stories, and that's something I like to do. Just the people I don't know, I'll just ask them, are you the guy that's got that secret treasure map? And they'll say, no, not me. And I'll say, well, they told me you'd deny it, and you denied that pretty fast. You sure that ain't you? And just get them talking. And 99% of the time, they don't have a treasure story to tell. But every now and again, I run across people that's got some stories to tell. And there at that at the Watts booth there at the Sportsman's Expo, there was a couple interesting ones. One, I don't know if you got to hear, Gypsy, man. There was one guy who was telling me that he was cleaning carpets for some lady. She just sold her place. She was hopping on the plane right then to head over to Europe. She wasn't coming back. He didn't have her phone number. She paid him cash in advance, just said clean the place and lock it up. He gets there, and there's nothing there. In there, all the furniture, everything's gone. He's cleaning it, and he gets into this one closet, and there's 3 shoe boxes. So he goes to move them out of the way, and the bottom shoe box is heavy, and he opens it up, and there was $80,000 in gold cruiser amps. And so, he has no idea who this lady is. I mean, she paid him cash, just told him to do it. She was on a plane headed for Europe, and so he did know her name, but he didn't know how to contact her. So he went through the phone book and finally tracked down her daughter so he could give that money back to her daughter. But, there's things like that all the time, where people have hidden their money in walls or whatever and passed away, or, you just never know, In fact,
wow.
In fact, I remember a long time ago when I used to sell and rent metal detectors, and so I had a cell phone. This was back before cell phones was a big deal, and I was in the driver's license place getting my driver's license renewed, and the guy behind the counter says, "Man, how come you're so important? You got to have a cell phone?" And I told him, I sell, rent, prospecting equipment, metal detectors, and so people can get a hold of me. And he says, "Well, I got a story for you." And he told me that his dad, on his deathbed, told him he buried a bunch of gold coins. I can't remember how much he said. And in his last dying breath, he told him that he buried it by the tree. Well, he says, we lived on an orchard. What tree?
Which tree?
Wow. Hey, I got it, and I'll make it super quick. My brother, who used to exclusively do roofing, now he does remodeling and stuff as well. Matter of fact, he's does that more than the roofing because he's getting up there, and that's a young man's game, although he still does some. 20 years ago roughly, he was working on actually put a new roof on the house, and for some reason he had to get into the attic, and he got up there, and there was, if I remember correctly, as soon as he climbed up, there was a box he had to move. It was in his way, and it came open or whatever, and it was a box full of gold coins. And he yelled down to it was an older couple, and he said, I'm sure my brother was pale as could be, couldn't believe this. He'd seen these, and he goes, do you know you have gold coins up there? And if I remember correctly, like I said, it's been a long time ago, the guide forgot he even had them up there. But he was, a box full of gold coins. My brother just said it was so cool to see those. And but yeah.
Oh, man. How do you
Yeah,
get so...
my brother, he came home one day at my dad's house, and I was over to my dad's house, and he's bringing in all these guns. There must have been 30, 40 of them, all these guns. Where'd you get all them? And he starts to tell me the story how one of his best friends, his dad was friends with this old gentleman who just passed away. Well, it happened to be that he was royalty from some country, but he lived over here, and he had two old homes. It was the small homes, old homes. This was in the 80s when this happened. But anyways, the family called him up and from whatever country, and says he's got all kinds of stuff: guns, gold, silver, stocks, bonds. Can you help us gather that stuff up? So my brother goes to help him, and they're over there, and they're looking through this house. Finally, in one of the bedrooms, they moved a rug on the floor, and all the floorboards had been cut, and they was nailed to a piece of tin, and they rolled that back, and all them floor joists was stuffed with guns.
Oh.
And then they got into and then they got one of them was one that was given to him by the King of France, and it was worth like $60,000 or $80,000, something like that.
Wow.
And then they went into the kitchen, and there was a tall cabinet, and they removed the shelves, and I don't even know how they even knew how to do this. And there was a trap door in the back of that shelf, and they went down behind the kitchen sinks and there was all kinds of stocks and bonds and mining stocks and all kinds of things back there. Then they found two Stradivarius violins, and then the family says, well, he's got a bunch of gold and silver. So they're found this the blueprints of the house in the basement, and it looked like they thought there was a hidden vault or something there. So they seen the blueprints. They go to lunch. They come back, and the blueprints are gone. And they didn't really study them to see exactly where it was. So they're hammer drilling the walls in this concrete basement to see if they can find something. They're not finding anything. So finally, they call me to bring my detector over. And so I'm detecting the walls there, and you're getting the rebar and stuff. But I go up and I'm detecting the walls in the upstairs in the hallway, and I get a big square signal in the hall, and this wall's made out of lath and plaster. And I says, let's poke a little hole and stick a wire in there and see if we can't fill and see what it was. I went to find a wire, and before I got back, man, they had a Sawzall out. They was tearing the wall out, and it had stuck to the lath and plaster was a piece of tin. Is what it was. But at the same time, the family was trying to sell the house, and the realtor comes in as we're tearing the wall down, showing people this house, and it was crazy. But they found a lot of stuff in there. So you never know what can be in these old houses.
That is crazy.
Yeah, right.
So, Terry, if you don't mind, tell us, when did you get your first detector, or get the treasure bug, or what got you started, and if you don't mind?
So what got me started, I was I think I was 21, something like that. I was working on a power plant out in the Uinta Mountains. It was by the Uinta Mountains, where there's a story of the Lost Roads mine. And one of the guys I worked with had the book, and his family was involved with some of that, and they'd been searching for all their lives. But he let me read the book, and it talked about, how there was this rich mine that the Indians had, and there was enough gold there to pave the streets of New York City, to pay off the national deficit, and all kinds of things like that. And the Spaniards was in there, and the Spaniards enslaved the Indians and worked them to death. And for some silly reason, the Indians didn't like that, so the Indians revolted against them, and and killed off all the Spaniards and hid all the gold bars and hid up all the mines because it was nothing but bad medicine to them. So whatever it took the tribes to do, they spent however long it took to hit everything up. And so people have been looking for this for forever, and well, some of that area that it talked about, that's the areas that I used to go hunting and fishing and things like that, and I'd seen some of the things they talked about. So that instantly hooked me, and I started looking for that stuff. And then my wife, I think, it was before I was even married, before we even got married, this was in 83 probably, she brought me my first detector, and it was an old White's, and it only had just one knob just to turn on. That was it. There was no discrimination, and it had just a small 6-inch coil. It wasn't interchangeable. But I found a lot of stuff with that just because I had to dig everything, and I was instantly hooked. And that's what got me started.
Wow. That's awesome. That's a neat story.
Did you find much with it? Did you find much metal detecting in that area?
So, metal detecting up in those areas in the mountains, you don't find a lot except for a lot of brass, bullet brass, lead,
right,
stuff like that. You don't find a whole lot because it's scattered and hidden. And you don't know. But I found a few things. I remember one time I found this old pine tree. It was dead, but it was still standing, and it had some symbols, and I figured it was Spanish markings on one side of it, and I couldn't really read them because the pine tree was dead, but there was on the other side, there was, starting like somebody was on a horseback, reaching way up high, there was these slash marks deeply chopped in, 21 of them going down the face of that tree. And so I figured, well, that means 21 veras, this direction, there's got to be a treasure or something buried. So I figured out what 21 veras was, and I marked it out, and it lit right underneath a boulder on a hillside. And so I thought, I wonder if there's something under this boulder. So I went and got my brother to help me move that boulder out of the way, and we finally got it rolled out of the way after quite a while. And I put my detector under where that boulder was. Mm-hmm. And it started going crazy. My detector started going crazy. So my heart, it starts pounding, and I'm thinking, there's the gold bars right under this thing. Well, I get digging down, I start finding burnt wood, and I start finding these old square nails. I'm wondering, what the heck is square nails doing underneath this boulder on a hillside? So I go up a little bit higher, and I dig down to the same level, and I hit the same burnt wood and square nails. So I go down to the bottom where the hillside levels out, and I could faintly see a row of rocks on the bottom, and then I could tell that there was a building that used to cut into the mountainside there, and at one time it had burned down, and then somebody leveled it all off so you couldn't tell there was anything there, and then even rolled that big boulder there so you couldn't tell there was nothing there. And I in my mind, I'm assuming that the Indians did that to hide it up, and so I started detecting around the bottom of them rocks, and I found an inside clapper to a bell. I found an iron arrowhead. I found the hammer part of a flintlock. I found an old musket ball.
Wow.
But in the mountains, you don't really find a whole lot, but I did find that stuff. Other than Jim Ferrello, he was there with us at the Watts booth there at the Sportsman Expo. Jim, he's a treasure hunter from way back, and all these old time treasure hunters that you read and hear about. Well, he's one of them. Anyways, he invited me down to his cabin, and he somehow got a hold of some old 1800s maps and found where there was an old cabin, and he thought it might be part of an outlaw where the outlaws hid out, and it showed the cabin in a spring, and he overlaid it on a GPS and then loaded it into his phone, got the coordinates, and we went right to it, and you couldn't tell there was ever a cabin there. It's and I got my detector, and the second target I found was an 1873 $half.
Oh,
That's
wow.
the first money that I've really found out in the mountains. Usually I just find bullet brass and lead, So there is some stuff out there, just not a lot. A lot of relics,
Terry,
though, if you know where to look.
Yeah, if you know where to look. And Terry, Terry that was not all that long ago when you went.
No, that
him.
was just this last fall.
Right.
Wow. Wow.
That video is on your YouTube channel, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And we got the pleasure of talking to Jim Ferriello at the Sportsman Expo, and isn't he just a wealth of information?
Oh, he is. He is a wealth of it. Plus, not only is he a wealth of it, boy, the information, he's got, from what I understand, one of the largest private research libraries. So, he's a good guy to know.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
neat. Hey, Terry, can you tell us what are some of your favorite metal detecting finds? I always ask that. It doesn't have to be valuable. Some of my favorite stuff would mean nothing to nobody else, but maybe it's because where I found it or something like that. Do you mind sharing with us some of your favorites?
So, I haven't done a lot of coin shooting. I have done that. Of course, after watching Gypsy's videos and things like that, man, I'm going to get back into it. I kind of missed that. But, mainly I've just been using my detector to give me telltale signs of where the Spanish have been and things like that. So I really haven't found a whole lot. But, some of the things, the first ring I ever found was I got an underwater metal detector, and I was going to go to Mexico and find me a Spanish galleon. I thought you'd go scuba diving. So I took it. I went to Cozumel and went scuba diving, and I had a dive master, there from the island, and I bring that thing out, and he says, no, you can't bring out that. This is a national park type thing. You can't be having that here. So I never got to find my Spanish galleon, but,
man.
the last few days we went over to Cancun, and it was the last day we went and seen the ruins and things like that. That was pretty awesome. But the last day, my cousin says, well, man, you brought that detector out. You just, break it out. It was at nighttime. Let's go out and detect the beach. I said, all right, and so the very first thing I found was a 1-carat diamond ring, and I had it resized to fit my wife and gave it to her because she didn't go along on this trip with me. And she said, "Man, if you're going to be bringing me things home like that after these trips, you can go anytime you want." But something that was really cool when I was doing that, I was in just a couple feet of water in the beginning, and I'd sweep my coil across the sand, and hundreds of these little teeny stingrays they was all embedded in the sand. I mean, hundreds of them would just take off going where I sweep my coil. That was pretty cool.
Whoa.
But as far as finding, really big cool things, that iron arrowhead and musket ball and part of that gun, that was pretty cool. Found some copper. They weren't copper ingots. They were copper pour. They were poured, that were from an old 1800s copper mine, the Dyer mine, and then that was pretty cool. I found a lot of coins and things, but the things that really stick out to me is the things that helped give me clues to things that I was looking for. So
very cool. Yeah.
When you got started, into metal detecting, and then it kind of evolved into selling metal detectors. Then, kind of after that, what was the kind of let's just say, how did it evolve into kind of where you are now, and you started a group. Can you tell us more about that, and then the group that kind of other thing that you started that's more current?
Yeah, so I'd heard from a guy I was working with. He was telling me that there was some caves clear up in the mountains high in the cliffs, by where I live, and he said that they had pioneer names and dates written on them with charcoal, and them names and dates were the late 1800s. And I thought, man, that'd be cool to find that and see that, take pictures of it, detect it, And so I went looking for it, and I was 3 or 4 weekends hiking all across the Wasatch Front in this area looking for these, and finally I found 2 of them, and there was supposed to be 3 of them. I was looking for the 3rd one, so I'm checking all the cliff walls, looking for this cave, and all of a sudden I came across these neatly chiseled in symbols into the slate rock wall there. This slate is hard stuff, and these things are neatly chiseled in, and immediately, I thought these are Spanish treasure symbols, saying that there's a Spanish treasure here, and so I started doing all kinds of research on those, trying to figure out what they were, and I figured they weren't Spanish. So then I thought maybe it had to do with the Aztec and had to deal with Montezuma's treasure. So I started researching all that and figured out it wasn't really that. And anyways, trying to figure out what these were. I heard that there was this professor who'd done some research on them. Well, first, after I found these, a year later, I found out that there was a couple other of these like that, and so I tracked them down and found out that there was 12 of these scattered throughout the western United States, and they kind of look like Egyptian hieroglyphs. They're not Egyptian, but some of the characters are Egyptian. They're a mixture of Egyptian, Mayan, Aztec, Chinese. They're just a mixture of different cultures. And anyways, I'd heard that there was this professor who'd done some research on them, so I got every book he had, and I read them, and he never talked about these. And so I went to the library of the university of where he was at and asked for his books, and they showed me all the ones I already had. And I said, well, I've heard that he's done some research on these hieroglyphs, but I'm not finding them in any of these books. And she told me, well, you might want to try special collections, because sometimes these professors, they'll write papers and things, but they won't publish them, but they turn their papers into special collections. So I go down to special collection and I ask for his stuff, and they brought me out 24 apple boxes filled with these filing cabinet folders. And what had happened is he just passed away, and his wife donated all his material to the special collections. Well, the curator of special collections, his friend had asked him if he could go through that stuff and see what was there, and so he was leaving to go on a mission for his church, and so he left notes that somebody was going to come and ask for that stuff, and when they did, let him look at it. Well, when I came, they thought that was me, so I asked to see that stuff, and they bring out these 24 apple boxes. Well, when I got going in there, it was a treasure hunter's dream. It talked about all these ancient things. It talked about all kinds of stuff. So when I seen that, I spent a lot of money photocopying stuff. I spent a lot of money, and it turned out that this professor, he was kind of given a calling by his church that the church members from all over the country would say, we found these neat things, this neat thing, check this out. And it was kind of his calling to go check all this stuff out. So that's what all this stuff was. And, now that stuff is no longer there. But that's what got me started onto the to the ancients, because in there was my videos and my research on Brewers Cave. Well, in there was everything on Brewers Cave. In there was stuff on Juan Moritz and the subterranean tunnels in Ecuador. It was on Father Crespi. It was on just all kinds of things that was just I was anyway. So
Terry, real
that's
quick.
kind of.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I got a question for you from the chat. Before we get too far, has Terry seen many symbols that look like a turkey foot? A friend of mine found a rock in the back of a cave with the carving of what looked like a turkey foot on it, with the top of the turkey foot formed into a cross, and 2 other crosses on either side of it. Have you ever seen anything like that?
I haven't seen that, but the turkey foot, is a follow marker, and with the cross on it, I would just guess, that's a follow marker with saying that it's Spanish. But if it's inside of a cave, I don't know where you would follow unless that cave goes on and there's a way to follow that cave back in somewhere. So.
Right. Sorry, we had Chris ask that question before we get too far, so I might stop you here and there to ask questions. If you don't mind, I would love to get into the out of place archaeology. I think that is so cool. If you don't mind talking about some of that.
Okay, let's hit it.
Okay. I don't know that I have anything specific other than maybe share some of the most interesting stories you've come across.
So, back to tracking down these what I call them is mystery glyphs. I got a website called mysteryglyphs.com that talks about them. At one time I thought they was Egyptian, and that was because there is Egyptian artifacts being found. Some of these, like there's a site of these in Pocatello, Idaho, where in 1918 there was a young girl who found a rock that was in the shape of a chicken egg, and it had markings on it. They just thought it was Indian, scratchings or something. Well, this young girl kept it all her life, and when she was older, she developed cancer, and it was terminal. And her great granddaughter happened to be there, and she was rummaging through her stuff and came across this rock, and she gave it to her granddaughter. Well, the great-granddaughter kept it all her life because it was something special that her great-grandmother gave to her before she passed away. Well, in the 70s, when King Tut's tomb was making its travels around the United States, given its exhibition, the Smithsonian Magazine put out an article on King Tut's tomb. Well, this girl that had gotten this egg, she was in the dentist's office, and she was thumbing through the Smithsonian Magazine and started seeing some of these markings on King Tut's sarcophagus was the same markings that was on this egg that her grandmother had given her. So she took it down to the University of Berkeley, and they authenticated that it was a piece of alabaster from Egypt, and it had King Tut's high priest signature on one side of this rock, and it had the cartouche of his name on the other. Now, this rock was found in 1918, but they never broke into King Tut's tomb until 1922. So they never even knew about King Tut's signature cartouche. So how did that get there in Pocatello, Idaho in 1918,
Wow.
And then, one of the things that I went to when we went to this hunt that Watts had in Mancos, Colorado, two of the reasons I went there. One was I went there to meet with Jim Ferrello, and he had some problems with hail damage and things he had to take care of, so he never made it. But the second thing I wanted to check out, and I'd already been there and checked out, but the guy there in Mancos, Colorado, when he was 5 years old, this was in like 1953, I think, he found a rock that was that was carved and looked like an Egyptian scarab with Egyptian hieroglyphs on it. And I found out about this, and he showed it to me, and I had it looked at by some Egyptian antiquities dealers, and one of them told me that it was an obvious fake. The other one says, this looks real, and this is a magician's amulet, and they don't really have the knowledge of the proper way to write Egyptian hieroglyphs, but they know enough to do the magic seals, and so, and 3 or 4 others said it looked real, so there was a controversy whether it's really real or not. But what's that doing in Maine Coast, Colorado? And then down at Lake Powell, down in the Grand Canyon, you got the story of the Egyptian city supposedly that was down there in the Grand Canyon. That 1906 article out of the Phoenix Gazette that talks about, they did the expedition down the Grand Canyon and clear pie in the cliffs. They found this. They seen this cave opening and steps going up there. They get up there and it's a catacomb clear full of, I don't know if it was really Egyptian artifacts, but it was clear full of artifacts, gold artifacts, mummies, Egyptian style things, and catacombs where it looked like a lot of people could have lived inside these catacombs, and since then people have tried to figure out what all this is, and now that part of the Grand Canyon, they won't let you go hike in there, look around that part of the Grand Canyon. There's names, Egyptian names, all the place around is Egyptian names. People that go to that part on the rim and look around are harassed by black helicopters, and there's no fly zone in that part of the Grand Canyon. Well, I had a friend of mine who found some Egyptian hieroglyphs. He didn't know what they was. He had no clue what they was. When he was boating at Lake Powell, he just happened to park their houseboat, and in the morning they got up and did a little hike and found these Egyptian hieroglyphs. They didn't know what it was. They just thought it was interesting, so they took their family photo in front of them, and 10, 15 years later, I'm talking to him about the mystery glyphs, and he says, well, I found these strange symbols at Lake Powell. What do you think these are? And he got me the family photo, and man, they look 12th dynasty Egyptian to me. Now, whether they're real or not, whether some Egyptologist went there and wrote down, me and my family went here and had a great time, or whether it's part of this stuff of the Egyptians in the Grand Canyon, because the Grand Canyon's along the Colorado River, and then Lake Powell is made up out of the Colorado River, in near where I found these mystery glyphs in the mountains east of Provo in 1956, I believe it was. 3 women was hiking along the bench there, and they seen something shiny sticking out underneath the rock, so they dug it out, and it was kind of an Egyptian-looking belt that had Egyptian engravings all over it. So there's been interesting things found all over the place. How they really got there, whether they're real or not, that's what I would like to find out. And so because of that, because of Brewers Cave, I decided to put together this organization called it the Ancient Historical Research Foundation, and we got on site, we had it was a closed group. There was just a few of us. There was 9 of us. So I had a scientist, an archaeometrist, an archaeologist, a computer programmer, a business manager, and anyways, we got together and formed this thing specifically to test artifacts, to track down artifacts, to try and get to the bottom of these stories if they're real or fraud, And so some of the things that we was working on, was the mystery glyphs, Brewers Cave, Burroughs Cave, Juan Moritz and the subterranean tunnels in Ecuador, Father Crespi in Ecuador, and Cuenca, and then some lost mines and treasures and things like that. But where do I want to go from here? There's some things that I don't want to tell and talk about.
Some things you don't have to talk about, Terry. I know some of it you're probably still currently working on, but I'm curious.
Let's take a break from that really quick. Excuse me. First off, your website ancientlosttreasures.com. That's the forum, correct?
Yeah. And so that used to be a great forum. A lot of people, there's a lot of great information on there, but our computer program, my friend White Eagle, who ran all that stuff, passed away. And since then I've kept it up, but I'm not computer savvy enough to really keep things going and know how to really work things and that. So, but there's a lot of great information on that website. So on that forum, so one time used to get like 1 million views a month, So
it is very interesting. I would tell folks listening, if you're interested in this, go to mysteryglyphs.com. Great website. I mean, I'm just looking at it. I didn't know. I've bookmarked it. And then the forum, it looks like you're migrating it to a new one, right?
It was migrated a long time. So if you go to ancientlosttreasures.com, that should get you to the. It was on YouTube, but YouTube, we had some things. I don't know if people know who Russ Burroughs is and the Brewers Cave in Illinois and all that stuff that they found there, and that we was working with Russ Burroughs and some heated debates and things got out of there, and some people went to UQ and wanted things taken down, and so they started taking things off right and left. UQ did without our permission, some of the conversations, and so we migrated it off of UQ onto our own server. So
okay. Yeah, I would say check it out. Now, what else? I believe I seen a mention of a Facebook group, correct?
So the Ancient Historical Research Foundation, we've got a Facebook group. We've also got a website, ancienthistoricalresearchfoundation.com. And, it was just big, long stories. But anyways, like I said, our computer programmer, White Eagle, when he passed away, it just kind of left us in limbo and a lot of things. So I just recently found out that a lot of people are trying to join the Ancient Historical Research Foundation, and I have no way I don't know how to let them join, but
okay, I just
we do
joined.
have the Facebook. I do have the Facebook page, Ancient Historical Research Foundation, where people can just, get in and talk. But our website, the Ancient Historical Research Foundation, we was trying to build it up where we had an online library and all kinds of stories and things like that. But I think unless you're subscribed or join the Ancient Historical Research Foundation, you can't get in to see everything. But, like I said, I was just told, man, that we haven't been able to let people join. They sign up, but they don't get signed up. So okay. I got to find me a computer programmer to figure that out, I guess, to learn how to run that website or teach us how to run that website or something. So,
wow, you guys have some good. Is there any other anything else you want to mention? Social media, or I know your YouTube, and that's just through Terry Carter, correct?
Yeah, if you search for Terry Carter Treasure Hunter, it'll come up. Well, if you search it on Google or YouTube, or look for the pirate.
Very interesting. Yeah, you guys got a lot of stuff going, don't you?
So we did have a lot of stuff going on, but when White Eagle passed away, it put a big dent into us, So.
So your small group has grown fairly large now. You get a lot of people
What was that? I missed that, Gypsy. What?
I said, Terry, your small group, it started small. It's kind of grown now.
So yeah, originally, it was just the 9 of us, and we didn't let anybody in, and we was working on things, and one of the things we worked on, we was doing a lot of testing things, but one of the things we tested was Brewers Cave. Is supposedly a cave that a man found in the 50s, and he started excavating it out, and he started finding all these old metallic library records, that was in stone boxes wrapped in cedar bark and then smeared with pine pitch, and then covered with mud, so they looked like dirt clods. Or one of them, there was even a wall of these boxes covered with mud, so it looked like part of the wall. And inside there, when he got going around, he found these two giant sarcophaguses, and he took a handyman jack and a tire iron and removed the lids, and there was two giants in them, a man and a woman. The woman had blonde hair, and the man had red hair, and the man was 9 foot something, and the woman was 8 foot something. They had breastplates on, golden crowns, jewelry, all kinds of things on them, you know. But anyways, you know, when I got this story, it was too hard for me to believe, and this is before the age of the internet. I hadn't really heard of giants, and so I thought that was far-fetched, you know, and I started doing some research and doing interlibrary loans and things like that, and started coming up with, you know, there was a such things as giants and ancient records and things like that. So I started tracking all this down. Some of the information I got out of them 24 apple boxes was this guy's journal, the contacts of the people who'd been working on this, and it was all kept pretty hush-hush. So I started contacting them all, and I ran across one of the guys, this John Brewer. He'd given one of these stone boxes that was wrapped in cedar barks to this professor so that they could have it analyzed. And they analyzed it, and it came back that it was modern. So I found the guy that had this box, and I went and analyzed it. Had it analyzed. We had it carbon dated. The Ancient Historical Research Foundation did, and we had it carbon dated 2 different universities. And the one university we took to, they'd analyzed it before, so they was expecting it to come back modern. Well, when they analyzed it the first time, they just got the surface material and analyzed that, but we made them go deep into the center of the bark. And when they pulled that out and done a carbon dating on it, it came back 2500 BC. Well, that blew them away. They could not believe that was right, so they thought they screwed up on the carbon dating. And so they ran the test 10 different times, and 10 different times it came out 2500 BC. Well, at the same time, they was running some other tests on some other things that came back way older than what they thought. So they got checking, and there was a problem that the solution they'd got a different solution than what they'd been using, and it wasn't calibrated to their machine. And so when they recalibrated it, the date of this stone box with the copper records in it, copper metal plates with writings on them, it came back from 50 to 350 BC, and so which is still pretty daggone old. But the important thing of it is that screw up, you know, they ran it 10 times, came up with the same answer, you know. So I don't remember what I was going with that story, and I don't remember what you asked. Well, anyway, there was something.
I've got a question real quick that I've never dove deep into any of this time and different things, although I do think that there's some good information there's some good information out there on the giants. And you know, I was talking to you about, I'm from Ohio, and you know, the Ohio Giants, they talk about, I've heard a lot about and stuff. My biggest thing is that bothers me, I understand and I fully believe that a lot of these bones could have been confiscated, taken away, hidden. But in modern times there's so many ways to get on to YouTube and Facebook videos and Instagram videos and all that stuff. Like, I haven't seen anything. Have you seen enough physical evidence that you think it's a real, that they existed?
So I have not seen anything personally, and that's what I would love to do, is personally, you know, find it, you know, have it evaluated to see if it's real. You know, you hear all these stories that they're out there and people find them, and that the Smithsonian's hiding it, and they don't want people to know about it. And it blows my mind. Why would the Smithsonian care if there's giants? You know, why would they hide this stuff? I just don't really understand that, But this, when we was at the Watts booth there at the Denver Sportsman Expo, this lady came by and Gypsy was talking to her, and all of a sudden I heard her say a giant skull, and I perked my ears right up and said, "What?" and anyway, she found this skull there in the Baja, there in Mexico, the Baja Gulf there, whatever you call that. That she said the jawbone was 3 times bigger than hers, and she had pictures of it. And I did an interview and interviewed her on it, but there's nothing there to give an actual size. There's nothing in the picture that you can have a size to reference it from. And so that you really can't really just have to take her word for it. However, if you look at the teeth on that jawbone, the teeth on the front of your teeth, how ours kind of come to a pointed, for ripping meat and stuff. Well, all these teeth are flat and round. They're round, not like ours at all. So it's definitely it's different, than ours would be. So
that's amazing. Yeah. So you got to see pictures.
Yeah, and the pictures are on that video. Geez, it's just one I uploaded a couple weeks ago. I can't remember the name of it. But
I watched that one.
Picture.
That was really good.
So, but if you look at that video, look at the teeth, the front teeth especially, because you can see how they're rounded and flat. It's like this giant isn't a meat eater. He's like he eats grass or something. It's not like our teeth at all. So there's something different, about that. But that's my curiosity with the out of place archaeology is I want to, if it's real, I want to find it and document it and verify it's real. And if it's being suppressed, I want to release it on YouTube so the whole world can see.
Yeah.
So, but who knows if it really is or not? That's what they say. There's all kinds of stories. There's all kinds of newspaper articles talking about them. That they was found in the 1800s, early 1900s, and now you never hear anything. So I don't know.
Yeah, I watched a documentary. I guess it's been over a year ago, and it might have been on the History Channel. I can't remember which one it was on, and it was on the giants, and they have found supposedly bones all across the U.S., and then it seems like every time, they showed old photos, and then even photos from the old newspapers, like you were talking about, from the 1800s or early 19. One was like 1920-something. I can't remember exactly. And it showed some photos of these bones that they dug up, and the size of the skulls were just huge. And, of course, they turned some of it over, and supposedly the Smithsonian, and then it was never seen from again, And now people, you just tend to say, well, do we believe that or not? Well, we didn't have a video camera rolling then, or, you didn't have a lot of documentation of the carbon dating and all that.
Something that strikes me funny, though, is any newspaper accounts I've seen, they're always mid 1800s to early 1900s, like usually teens. I don't even know if I've seen, and I find that odd. Why were there so many articles then? And again, now with it so easy to put a video out there, why has nothing come forward? Look, I am skeptic of everything, but I'm also a believer in the possibilities of so many things. And there's so many things I do think there's a good possibility of, and this is one of them because there is so many things. But that really strikes me that you mentioned, because most of what little research I've done is on the giants of Ohio, and they're all like I would say 1870s to 19 teens at the latest. And I think that's funny that you mentioned the same thing, because I know you weren't even really familiar with the Ohio Giants other than you knew of them. You'd heard of them, but so
yeah,
I find
what's interesting though about that today, in today's media and today with so many hoaxes and things going on, that even if something totally real, let's say I'm out metal detecting tomorrow and I dig up this breastplate and then it's attached to a ancient body, and maybe I even video it and I turn this in. I mean, these days there's so much, good and bad on the internet and on media today that is, I would be chastised as she's pulling some hoax to, to get on national news, or, there would be people that are like, oh, wow, you found that, that know me and know that I would never lie about something like that. But then you have so many people today that, if you do find something that's incredible and you were to turn it over, that a lot of people wouldn't even believe you these days,
So 100%, there is a lot of stuff being frauded out there. 100%.
Oh, I believe it.
And so it's hard to figure out what's real and what's not. For the newspaper articles, they say that, well, that was just sensationalized reporting to get subscribers up to their newspapers. That's what they say. But as far as why everything was found in the 1800s and stuff, you had the 1800s, you had the farmers clearing their field of these mounds over in Ohio. You had treasure hunters that was digging in the mounds in them areas, and that's when they was finding this stuff. There was things found all over the country that was mentioned, in a brief newspaper article here or there. Why we don't find them today like they did back then is there's not many people out digging and clearing lands and doing things like they did. But also, I had an archaeologist tell me right straight up, that if he found anything that went against mainstream archaeology, he'd bury it back up and never mention that he ever found it, because they would ostracize him, saying you're a kook,
exactly.
and they would lose their credibility and lose their, with in their profession, and that 100% that stuff happens. My scientist, with the Ancient Historical Research Foundation, when 9/11 hit, some of his friends came to him and says, "Can you take a look at this stuff, and do some analyzing some stuff here?" And he got analyzing, and he thought and the main one he did that building number 7 that came crashing down, the one that never got hit by the airplanes, and he's doing some testing and stuff like that, and he found thermite in it, and he says, "Man, Terry," he says, "this was brought down by scientists. Science proves that this is brought down by a controlled explosion. There's no way that this thermite could be in this stuff from anything else, And I says, "Man, Steve, if you go to his name's Professor Jones, Dr. Jones. If you come out with this, they're going to ostracize you." And he says, "I can't not tell the truth." Well, he came out with it. Sure enough, man, they ostracized him. They ruined him. They destroyed his credibility. They had all these other scientists coming out, and he's a quack, And so, if and that's what happens if you come out against mainstream archaeology, mainstream science. Man, you're going to be scrutinized, and that is a fact.
Yes.
Yeah. And it makes you
that's a shame. That's a shame.
How did our country, why are some things swept under the rug and hidden from,
Yeah, it makes no sense to me at all.
It doesn't to me either. And, I've heard this too. A lot of people will look to the Bible as for a lot of, because it reports a lot of history, kind of in some of it, how it's compiled into chronological, historical order. And if you go all the way back, I remember reading, if you go back to even the book of Genesis, it talks about giants roaming the earth during that time. It talks about six-fingered men, and just look it up. It's pretty interesting, I mean, and then you've got the story of David and Goliath, and David had brothers, etc. Goliath did. Well, was it Goliath? Yeah. But you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I mean, it's our history. There's several accounts, and then even in, like I'm sure you've studied in some I can't even talk. Like some of the ancient drawings and stuff, that there's some stuff that we can't quite explain.
What's some of this misplaced what do we call it? Jeez.
Out of place archaeology.
Yes, I'm sorry. Give me some of your best examples of things that you believe very much. Maybe you don't know for sure, but you definitely believe through research and stuff that are possible.
Yeah, so I don't know for sure. I want to get to the truth. Is this just sensationalized news reporting that happened in the 1800s? Are these stories of these giants being found, like Brewers Cave, these ancient records? Is the stories of intercontinental travel before Columbus? Is that true, or is that false? I want to know myself, but personally, I believe there was intercontinental travel. And they're starting to find things. That they figure now they're starting to admit, maybe the Vikings came over here before, I don't know. I kind of believe there was intercontinental travel before Columbus, and that's where you got some of them Egyptian artifacts over here. Gypsy, you talk about, you found that Roman coin. Well, there's also, my scientist, or my archaeometrist, he did a study on archaeometry is the study of ancient artifacts, and there was an old bronze or a short sword down there in Texas. I got a video on it, one of my videos, where it was found. I can't remember, 3-4 feet deep in this farmer's field. Well, the problem with that is they tested it, and it matches right up with the bronze and the metals and all that, but what we don't have is the provenience. Well, we have is the farmer saying that it was found here. And that farmer, was he telling the truth? I'm sure he probably was, but that's what you have when you have somebody like me and you finding something. And
right.
in situ, in the ground, well, then the archaeologist says, well, how do we know you found it? How do we know you didn't just bring that over here from Europe? And that's one of the reasons I started the Ancient Historical Research Foundation, because me, I'm just an electrician who has an interest in this stuff, and so I knew that I had to have reputable, credible people. That's why I put together the science, the archaeologist, the archaeometrist, and so that it wasn't just Terry Carter saying this. We had signed, and my hope was to find something in situ, dig something up under archaeological, so that you say, hey, this is real, this is legit, So
now,
I haven't
Terry,
got that far yet.
You will. Now, Terry, you've traveled a lot, going to some of these places and caves and cliffs where these carvings are in there. You were even, like when we were in Maine Coast, I think you invited me to go with you, and I wish now I would have went with you. You showed me some photos. Do you the one, was it the carvings in Mancos that you showed me? I don't remember.
So they're in Durango, Colorado. So,
yeah.
So there's some interesting carvings, different places. There's one that's, I call him the shot put man. He's a life-size carving of a muscle-bound man with a cross for a head, and he's holding. At first, I thought it was like a round ball. That's why I named him the shot put man. But I think actually he's holding his head in his hand. And then there in Durango, there's that mummy looking thing, and all these things are near these mystery glyphs, and so these mystery glyphs, I was curious. I tracked down, when I first started tracking them down, there was only 12 of them that was known, and now I've got that up to there's 30 sites of these scattered throughout the western United States, and they're in most of the time they're off the beaten path. They're in remote, inaccessible spots, but sometimes there's been a unique item found by them. Sometimes there's a kind of a shelter by them, and sometimes there's these neat carvings, not far from them. So yeah.
Wow. That's
very
fascinating.
interesting. Yeah, absolutely. What else do you get into? I mean, is there any other subjects we haven't touched on that interest you about mysterious and I don't know. Like we were talking a little bit. I told you about the guy I had on the UK podcast last week. Oh, geez, his name escapes me now. Very interesting fella about, he also did paranormal investigations and being thrown across the room and stuff. I mean, they often, I've heard when people are on the trail of Spanish treasure, they feel ghosts and stuff. I mean, is any of that ever?
So yeah, there's been a few times where I've thought, my mind playing tricks on itself, that maybe somebody's watching me or something, but that's just my mind, playing tricks on me. As far as ghosts or anything like that, I've never had anything like that happen. So I guess that must mean I haven't been close enough to make the ghost mad. I don't know. But I did have one strange thing happen to me, but it was strange, but it wasn't, I had my grandson with me, and I was up where I figure Brewers Cave is, and he was probably 8 or 9 years old. Anyway, I bought him a butterfly net on a long handle and a little cage so he could catch some lizards, and he caught these two big lizards, but he wanted sand into this cage, so I lift up the cage carefully. I'm putting sand in there, and one of the lizards jumped out and ran into a sagebrush. Well, all of a sudden, this huge black bat comes, and this is in the middle of the day. This is at noon. Comes flying across, skims the top of my grandson's head, and dives into the sagebrush. I don't know how it couldn't even have seen the lizard went in there. I don't know if it just did that on its own or not. And then I had my dog with me, and my dog jumps in after the bat, and all I'm thinking to myself, man, this bat has to be rabid for it to be flying at night or during the day in the middle of the day like that. So I grabbed my dog off it, and then the bat takes and flies off. I mean, this bat had probably a 1 foot wingspan, with both its wings out, was probably a foot. I'd never seen a black bat. There's lots of little brown bats, the little ones, but they only come out at night. This thing was a huge black one. I thought, man, I wonder if that's the spirits trying to warn me off of here. It makes probably not, but it makes a great story.
Right, interesting. So what's next? What are you doing these days, and what's next?
What's that?
What are you doing now, and what's next?
So I have some projects going that I can't talk about, but the big one is Brewers Cave. I think I've located it. Of course, that's me just thinking that until I break in and actually find it. It's just me thinking that. All the clues line up. all the things that I found line up. And then the big clue is I was looking for, I found that what I figured was the tunnel, but it's going to take too long to get in that way. So he had a shaft, a 30-foot shaft. So I've been looking for that. Last fall I took a ground penetrating radar in there, and we found a shaft exactly how he described it in his on his drawing of his map. And so now when the snow melts, I'm going to get some kind of a core drill, backpack core drill, get up there and drill down and see if I can break into the shaft, and then drop a camera down and see if it's worth investigating. When I did the ground penetrating radar, the one that they brought up only went 30 feet down. Well, he said in his drawings of this that the shaft is 30 feet, and then the room's for there. I would have liked to seen the room from the ground penetrating radar, but I didn't because it only went down 30 feet. I'm supposed to be getting another one that will go down deeper, but I don't know if I'll get that in time. I'm getting antsy, and so I'll probably just that's my biggest deal is to see if I can't break into Brewers Cave, see if it's real, get the archaeologists in there, and verify either it's real or it's bunk, and then other than that, I'm working on some other projects that I'm not going to talk about, but then other than that, man, watching Gypsy's YouTube channel, she's got me excited out to go detecting again. So I'm going to have to start doing that some more.
Now, have you ever found a cache of anything?
I haven't. Of course, if
hold on.
I'm dealing.
There was a long pause there. Would you ever tell the truth if you did?
So what?
Gypsy, did you hear that long pause? I have doubts that he's telling us the truth.
I know people that have found things. I got a friend that found 400 gold bars. The smallest one was 12 pounds. Of course, they weren't pure gold. They was only like 40% gold, and then it had a lot of copper, iron, silver, and stuff like that in it. You'll never hear about these finds unless you happen to personally know somebody. You'll never ever hear about it. Me, I haven't found anything, but if I did, I probably wouldn't say anything. And not just because of the government. There's bad people out there that they hear that you found something, and all of a sudden they're knocking on your door and they're hooking you up to the spark plug wires on their car and trying to get you to talk and tell what. And so, but I had some guys come to my house one time. I've had several. I've had several. I had a guy just 2 or 3 years ago. They came to my house and they was out metal detecting, and they found a small. It was smaller than a quart mason jar. The old mason jars with the ceramic lids. It was small, and it had some silver dollars, silver coins, Indian head pennies, buffalo nickels, and it had a skeleton key in it, and it had a paper in it that said Ralph, to the tree from the pole between the rock, or I can't remember what it said, 2 feet down. So they figured, there was a big treasure buried 2 feet down somewhere. So they started detecting all over. They went over by a corral and detected by that, and they found a quart mason jar full of Indian head pennies. They went over by a tree and found another quart mason jar full of buffalo nickels. They went in over to a rock and they found an old can with a slit in it full of pennies, and they found 5 of these bottles of old coins. The bottles, the big bottles, was only full of pennies, nickels, and that. But that there was, in the first one he found, there was a silver certificate dollar in it that was a 1935. So it was at least that old, or when it was buried in 1935. But who knows what that key was? They came and borrowed my 2 box. They wanted me to go with them, but I was working out of town, couldn't go. They come and borrowed my 2 box so they could try and find this, but they didn't know how to use it, or I don't know exactly what they did, but they never ever did find a big treasure like they was hoping to. But that was pretty cool that they found the mason
Pretty
bottle
awesome.
full of that stuff, you know.
Yeah. Makes you wonder what was in the big treasure.
Well, or even if there was one, or, you know, but there was clearly clues to whoever Ralph was, you know, 2 feet down, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I had another story I was going to tell.
Oh, go ahead.
What it was. I forget what it was.
Well, I've got one for you. I seen a video that you did. I watched it today, a matter of fact, where a guy says he found this. You interviewed him. He'd found a big gold bar, and it was a triangle. And the story is, I believe I think it was the Spanish, were running from the Indians, and one of the animals carrying the gold was shot, and the gold was buried and all that. Now, I have heard those stories over and over and over again, and it's always different. And what I mean by that, I've heard of the Civil War, the Confederates are running. I've heard in the Revolutionary War. I mean, I'm not saying none of those exist, but do you think a lot of those are, not true? I seem to think
100%. I believe a lot of them are not true.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of those out there, and I think if somebody wants to go hunt down a cache of some sort, look for the farmer who's far from town and might have buried them out on a fence. I think there was a lot more of that going on than all these stories that just keep getting changed, and but is there any that stick out of kind of famous treasure stories that you don't believe in?
That I don't believe in?
Yeah, that you think might be, like that. I don't think all those stories are true. I mean, is there anything that sticks out you think it's just not there, not?
I think, the big treasure stories, that because there's evidence that something did go on. Exactly what, I don't know, like Victoria Peak and Doc Noss. I definitely believe there was something to that. The Lost Dutchman, I definitely believe there was something to that. I think the Lost Roads Mine, Oak Island, I definitely think there's something to these. The KGC, Knights of the Golden Circle, that was a real thing. That was a real organization, but did they really hide and bury as much cash and gold bars and stuff people say? I really don't know.
Yeah, right. I think we had I'm so bad with names. Oh, geesh. Oh, that's all bad.
Wait till you get my age, then you'll really not be able to remember.
Let me look it up real quick, because that's Randall Sullivan. He just recently published the official Oak Island book, and we had him on, and what a great guest. But I've always felt like that, for TV, that's really legit. And the brothers the Guinas are very believe in that and stuff. And after talking to him, I believe even more in that there's nothing hoax. He talked about in the first season that a coin came up in the swamp, and the Guinas thought that it might have been planted by the producers. And they told them, we will shut this down immediately if you guys plant stuff. So not only, just after talking to him, it just even seemed more legit. But what I'm kind of getting at here is it blows me away almost daily, if not daily, at least weekly. I will see a post on social media where they're making fun of that show. They're making fun of the Guinas, whatever. And it really surprises me that my fellow detectorists, treasure hunters would be like that. I mean, I think that they have come up with some really good stuff. I think that they're going about it slow, methodical. There's a few hundred years of debris and stuff going on in that island that they've got to sort through, and I think they're doing a heck of a job. And whether there's something there or not, I think that absolutely there was something there.
I agree. I don't know if there's anything there now or not, but I think, that from the 1700s, then them kids first found something on, the burn marks in that oak tree, the planks and all that. Somebody did that for a reason. Now, what that reason is who knows. But a lot of these treasure stories, that they've been passed down from generation to generation, or somebody's picked up on a newspaper article or something and wrote a book about it. But some of that stuff, 100%, has probably already been found, and nobody said anything about it, No doubt in my mind that some of this stuff has already been found and treasures have been found, but you just never hear about it. It was found, in the 1800s, or all that stuff was found. I think not all of it. I think there's still stuff out there, or else I wouldn't be looking. But it's just the thrill of the search. My treasure is the people that I've got to meet, the things I've got to see, the stories I've got to hear, the artifacts that I've got to see that most people will never ever get to hear or see these things, and that's if nothing else, that's been my treasure. Anything else, it'll just be icing on the cake. But it's a lot of fun.
The travels, I'm sure, the adventures, how amazing. Just amazing. And to be privy to some of that information. I was just completely out of chat. I was listening. I didn't even have it up. Philip Gaver said, use my name, Mike, and tell the story. Philip, I am drawing a blank. I'm not sure what you're talking about or what I missed, or even if you're talking about me. But I think we're getting...
Sorry, I'm not in the chat anymore. Philip, we had him on our as a guest a month or so ago.
Good guy. I think we're getting to a good point to wrap up. If you got any questions, anybody in chat has any questions, anything you want us to ask Terry, anything you want to talk about, please do so. Terry, we're probably going to get off of here, and within the next couple days, week, you're going to come up with, I wish I'd have talked about this. I wish I'd have said that. I hope you will come back on again.
Yeah, always. My mouth runs faster than my brain, and I think I said things when I listen. I think, man, that was stupid. I never finished the story. I said it wrong or something like that. So, anyways.
Yeah, if you'll do it again, we would love to have you on. And I've had a lot of fun. I absolutely just zoned out of the chat. I usually at least keep an eye on it. I was just tuned in listening to you. So we'll wait to see if there's any questions. While we're doing that, please give us any links, social media sites, anything that you would want people to come visit.
Just the links that I have is mysteryglyphs.com, ancienthistoricalresearchfoundation.com, ancientlosttreasures.com, and then search for Terry Carter Treasure Hunter on YouTube. But like I say, since my friend, White Eagle's passed away, a lot of that stuff, you can still get in and see some stuff, but it's not going in as active as it used to be. So
I would definitely tell people to check out the chat room. Very interesting. Like I said, I bookmarked it. I will go back. I will join. I will warn our listeners, if you watch Terry's videos, it's a rabbit hole. You're going to get into one and then want to watch the next and the next. I can't do that because of the kids. But boy, did I get lost in that rabbit hole today. I was walking around with a kid in my hand, another one tugging at me, and I still had your videos going. Very good, very interesting videos.
Well, thanks. You're kind. I wondered if people would be interested in them, but I had a few people that that wanted me to share some of the stuff with them. That's the only reason I even put them on there. And then one day I looked, I wasn't even keeping track, didn't even care about YouTube. That was just a way to do it. One time I looked and I thought, holy cow, I got 2,000 subscribers. Where did they come from?
Yeah, very interesting stories. Again, check him out on YouTube. And I wasn't aware of some of your other sites. I bookmarked everything while we were talking. I'll go back and visit. But wow, the videos, I got to say, are very interesting. If you're interested in any of what we're talking about tonight, for sure go check them out. Some very, very cool videos. Very well done. Thank you, Terry.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. Hope I didn't bore you too
Terry.
bad.
No, we would. Not only would we like to have you back on, but people in the chat keep saying we got to have Terry on again. Terry has to come back again. Terry was a great guest. I seen somebody say you have to come back soon. What a great guest. Love listening to Terry. Yeah, you're getting people wanting you back. You did great. See, no worries.
Cool.
You were all nervous, and everybody's.
I guess that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I just have to hear it, but I sound like it. Probably. Let's see.
See, I told you, Terry.
And they're still coming in. They're still coming in. People are still saying great show and everything. So, thank you, Terry, so much. Thank you for taking your time.
Well, thank you guys, and thank you, Gypsy, and check out Gypsy's YouTube channel because she's got me wanting to get back out metal detecting.
Absolutely, I agree.
I got some water hunting places I want to check out now and stuff. So, man, I'm gonna have to, Gypsy. I'm gonna hit you up. I'm gonna buy a detector from you. So,
all right. Well,
I have to get rid of my old ones and get me a new one.
Let me know, and maybe if you're ever in this direction, we'll get to go detecting, treasure hunting together.
Chris,
that sounds fun. I got some things in Texas that I need to get to shortly to check out. So. We'll have to make it a date.
Let me know.
Chris,
right,
Chris said, tell Terry thanks for giving me the tip on my headphones on his CTX. I think he'd mentioned earlier. I meant to say something and we got past it. Chris Hemseth, I think. I'm not sure. I'm sorry for butchering your name, Chris, but yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Terry, great show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Well, there you have it. We wrapped up another one. Very interesting guy. We will have him back if he'll come on. I know Gypsy had a little tough time getting him on, but maybe after doing the first show and doing good, we'll get him back. Thanks all for tuning in, and good night, everybody.
Good night.